I think by the end of this conversation, we should all be able to sell a variable speed pump effectively. The benefits outweigh the costs in almost every case, whether it's energy efficiency, saving money, performance, sound, quality of the product, the lifetime of the product. All of these things kind of play in, but there's a lot of more benefits than there are costs.
This is episode 159 with Jeff Farlow, James Roberts, and Kevin Harms of Pentair. Enjoy!
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
Thank you all for joining us today. Can you please introduce yourselves and what your role at Pentair is and kind of how you got into the industry?
Yeah, sure. My name is James Roberts. I'm the Aftermarket Program Manager with Pentair. I've been in the industry approximately 30 years and came on board with Pentair last year to develop the Aftermarket program. And really, that program has three goals. We're really going to focus on helping dealers to better connect with their customers and understand their customers and know what's important to them in making a purchase decision. And then two, also looking at helping dealers capture more of their audience through the tools and platforms available at Pentair. And then lastly, you're going to see a new kind of dealer training that's focused on helping dealers how to sell products directly to consumers, whether that's a person behind the counter or a serviceman in the backyard.
Cool. So you've been at 30 years. What did you do before working for Pentair?
So I worked with another manufacturer for 15 years in sales and marketing. And then prior to that, I was in the service and repair and remodel business, going all the way back into the late 80s. Started in college cleaning pool tile, of all things.
Nice. Cool. How about you, Jeff?
I'm Jeff Farlow with Pentair. I'm Pentair's Program Manager of Energy Initiatives. My role at Pentair is really dealing with any government agencies, Environmental Protection Agency, or the Energy Star program, Department of Energy, what we're going to talk about today. I do a lot of work with electric utilities to help them develop the incentive and rebate programs for energy efficient equipment. So really anything to do with energy efficiency, I seem to be involved with in some way. I started in the industry about 15 years ago with Pentair. Pentair actually hired me as a motor expert. This is right after the Pentair Stay Right merger, and they needed somebody with in-house motor expertise as we were looking at combining two product lines. So that was I was hired for that, but quickly we were after that we were launching the variable speed pool pump in about 2005. So because of my previous experience working in a test lab and working with electric utilities in that, quickly transitioned over into this energy role. Prior to that, I was actually in the Navy. I was a nuclear reactor operator on submarines, so that's really how I got my hands wet and my experience around electric motors, around electricity. Electrical devices.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Harms. I'm the Associate Product Manager for pool pumps at Pentair. And kind of what I do is make sure that our products meet the needs of our customers and then that we communicate that value back to the customer. It's kind of a very, very vague overview of what I do. I do a lot, but that's the main goal is to make products that are meaningful for our customers. Most of our pumps that we're going to talk about are variable speed pumps, so that's one that I oversee. I've been in the industry about 2 years, all at Pentair. Prior to that, I worked as a field engineer for a water company, and then I shared a very similar background to Jeff, where I was in the Navy for about a decade before that on submarines, same thing. So
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, thank you for your service as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
So that seems to translate pretty well into this industry, or what?
Yeah, a lot of similarities for sure, especially with motors. I mean, motors and drives, they're pretty much the same across the world. So
It definitely provides a good technical foundation that you can use as a stepping stone to any technical role in our society. So I'm very appreciative for what the Navy provided me. In that it was exactly what I needed at that time. So
you make your bed every morning?
I'm thankful.
That's a good one.
Most mornings.
Most mornings.
I am the civilian now.
Very good.
That's awesome. So we're going to jump into the Department of Energy laws here, and we're going to do it a little bit different today. So we're going to be discussing how to communicate this with your customers and arm the listeners with some different sales tactics. But first, Jeff, could you kind of remind us what the Department of Energy is as a whole and why they're so important to the industry and in general?
Sure. So the Department of Energy is a pretty broad government organization, but as far as we're concerned, they deal with energy efficiency standards. They're trying to raise the energy efficiency of a lot of different appliances and industries throughout the nation. So that's where we were involved with them, is this energy efficiency standard process.
I'm curious if the pool industry didn't speak up to the Department of Energy, would something like this even be happening? Because we know that they have their hands in so many different things, because we are trying to conserve energy in many different ways. You know, they're out in the ocean and they're trying to figure out how they can use water for energy and wind and all these different things.
Right. You're right. There's such a broad aspect of what DOE does. What they have determined is that energy efficiency is one of the most cost-effective ways to improve the climate impact that we as humans are having. When it comes to pools are identified as one of the second largest energy users in the home. We have what's called the big three. We have hot water heating, we have air conditioning, and we have pool pumps. For a home that has a pool, those are your top three. The air conditioning usually accounts, that compressor is a pretty big load, accounts for about half the home's energy use. And then it's between the pool pump and the hot water heater for who's in second place for the most energy use. All the other appliances in the home are really small potatoes compared to those big three. And of those three, the pool pump gives you the largest opportunity to really cut your energy savings. So that's a big slice of the pie. And we have the ability to reduce that slice by almost 75%. So it's really the biggest impact item that you can do for your home.
I thought that was a pretty cool statistic to share with homeowners, because that's something you can relate to. Anything being close to the AC, everybody knows here in Phoenix anyway that you're getting into summer, you better have a nice little savings account, because your electric bill just went from maybe $50 to like $500 a month.
Right. And a lot of times, especially if we look at colder climates where the pool is only used seasonally, and consumers just don't realize how much energy that pool can use. Doesn't have to, but how much it can use. And the pool pump load will typically coincide with the air conditioning load, both coming on in the summer. And just consumers are typically blind to the fact that of that rising energy bill, how much of that is attributed to the pool pump in the backyard.
Yeah, you make a good point with those, seasonal. They also run their pumps kind of all day long, 24 hours a day, which we don't really do here. We just run it like, 10 to 12 hours. But in those climates, they run them almost 24 hours a day. So that could be a huge usage there.
It really is. You can burn as much energy in a 4-month season in upstate New York, running your pool 24 hours a day, as somebody in Miami that's running it 12 months a year, but only 6 or 8 hours a day. It's the same hours per year of operation. So same amount of energy on an annual basis.
I'm not sure a lot of people know that. It's good to know. So we've been hearing about the DOE laws coming into effect for many years now. Can you kind of share with us how that started and then what it means exactly when it's going to come into effect?
Sure. So the new dedicated purpose pool pump regulation, we refer to it as DP3, goes into effect July 19, 2021. So we're within about a month now of that going into effect as of this recording. That process actually started back in about 2015. DOE was tasked with regulating commercial industrial pumps. During that process, pool pumps were identified as a unique creature that needed its own dedicated regulation. So they completed the commercial industrial pump regulation and then immediately embarked on a dedicated purpose pool pump regulation. We started that process back in about August of 2016. I was actually on that working group and that voting committee for the regulations. We completed it January of 2017 with 54 months to comply. And that's where we're coming up on that 54-month deadline for compliance. And basically the regulation is set some minimum efficiency standards for pumps. And as of July 19, any pool pump that doesn't meet that minimum efficiency requirement, it'll be illegal for us to manufacture that product. And it's going to be a pretty big impact. We're looking at, close to 75% of all the pump part numbers in our industry are going to go away. And it really does focus on a larger in-ground pumps. That's where the biggest impact was made. And that's where we're virtually going to see variable speed as a requirement. I would say it doesn't say variable speed, but pretty much that type of technology is pretty much what's going to be required to meet the minimum efficiency standards, since it is a performance-based standard.
I feel like I'm going to see a lot of single speed pumps at yard sales, like those yard sales that nobody goes to. It's got like all the junk, like old lawnmowers, old weed whackers, and I got old single speed pumps.
Might become pretty valuable.
Hey, those brass
on the
pumps,
black market.
I like those brass pumps. Those things are slick looking. I don't want one on my pool, but I do. I think it would be
As a
cool
trophy.
little, put it over the fireplace or something. Some flowers in it. I don't know.
Those are still pretty valuable. You can get a good chunk of change for that brass. So, what does that mean to pool companies exactly? How is that going to affect them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the biggest impact to it that you'll really see is the change from predominantly single speed to a variable speed product. There will still be single speed pumps in the market, but the variable speed will really become dominant in most applications. One, because they have to meet the minimum efficiency requirement federally, and which is going to just, basically most pools will need a variable speed pump at this point.
What is that minimal requirement?
Yeah, so the minimum efficiency is in a term called WEF, or weighted energy factor. And that's a kind of a culmination of the energy the pump uses to move water. So each pump will be kind of marked to the standard or measured to the standard to determine a WEF, which is then the rating, the energy efficiency rating we're using. So for a variable speed pump, for example, they do a couple different test points. They determine the efficiency, and then based on the test points, the minimum efficiency varies a little bit. So for example, maybe like a pump that we'll call a 3 horsepower today might have a minimum efficiency of, let's say, 6. But maybe a 1 horsepower might have a minimum efficiency of 7. So the metric that's required, the minimum, and the performance are tied very closely to the performance of the pump and the power it uses to generate that performance or that flow.
Very good. And, a lot of homeowners might not be familiar with DOE and WEF. I didn't even know what WEF was until you just said it. But, how can we better explain what this all is to homeowners?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I think the starting point would be that the DOE has looked at this kind of from the viewpoint that Jeff's proposed, that pool pumps use a lot of energy. There's an opportunity to help the environment, and it also helps them. Right? A more efficient pump or variable speed pump will use less energy, saves you money no matter where you live. There are a few exceptions to that. Very small pools, maybe things like that. But the majority of people will save money, and it will use less energy. It'll help the environment. So that's kind of the starting point for it. From there, I think the discussion is more application based. Let's say a pool owner has a 2 horsepower pump today in their backyard for their pool. The pump goes bad next year. They need a new one. They go to their dealer or their service team. They're going to have a variable speed option. They're not going to have a new one, right? Because they won't be able to sell a 2 horsepower single speed pump. So the discussion should be, from the pool company, explain the benefits, right? You have to be kind of, I guess, understand the benefits of the pump and the requirements and explain why it's good for the customer. I think by the end of this conversation, we should all be able to sell a variable speed pump effectively. The benefits outweigh the costs in almost every case, whether it's energy efficiency, saving money, performance, sound, quality of the product, the lifetime of the product. All of these things kind of play in, but there's a lot of more benefits than there are costs.
This is Jeff. I'd like to add a little bit regarding WEF. It is mentioned a new word. It is a new metric we're not used to seeing, but it's very similar to miles per gallon in an automobile. Sort of how much work are you doing divided by how much energy it takes. And for an automobile, it's how many miles do you drive divided by how many gallons of fuel does it take to do that. So with a pump, it's how many gallons do you pump divided by how many kilowatt hours of energy it takes to pump that volume of water. So it sounds different, but it's actually a very similar metric to what we see every day, and at least compared to our automobiles.
Okay, Jeff. So, what vehicle is a single speed pump and what vehicle, is a variable speed pump?
So that's a good question. And the beauty in a variable speed pump is it can be a dragster on Friday night by speeding it up.
Ooh, like that.
And yet, once you cross the finish line, you can dial it back and you're driving around the rest of the week in a Prius. So that's really, I think that's just a beautiful thing about variable speed. It gives you the best of both worlds. You have all the horsepower you need there when you need it. But yet, you don't need to take a dragster to drive back and forth to the grocery store every day or back and forth to work. So being able to dial it down and do your daily driving or your daily filtration is just a beautiful example of what variable speed offers.
Yeah. So the single speed is just a dragster that's going to get a ticket riding around town.
Hummer.
Yeah. In July, the dragster's going to get a ticket cruising around town at those top speeds.
And you're going to pull up to the gas pump, about every afternoon just to top it off again. So.
Yeah.
So with those single speeds, you mentioned you're going to not be able to produce them anymore, but there's going to be some around, that the supply has to go out. But once that supply goes out, you're allowed to make any single speeds, up to a certain horsepower, and those are about, how are those allowed to be used?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's definitely a very important one. So after the date in July 19th, to back up a little to the DOE, there's different kind of groupings of these products. So they draw a line in the sand at a hydraulic horsepower level, which is equivalent to the power at the wet end of the pump or the impeller. For the horsepower of the smaller pumps, it's drawn at 0.711. So below this hydraulic horsepower measure, there's a different efficiency standard, minimum efficiency standard, than there would be for something a little larger. So that would be like the equivalent of almost a 1 horsepower pump today, roughly. So for those smaller pumps, less than 0.711 hydraulic horsepower, the minimum efficiency, like I said, is a little less stringent and will allow for some single and 2-speed pumps to be in that channel or to be produced still. It's hard to get into that range, but it is possible, and there will be single speed pumps on the market. Above that, so we're talking above about a 1 horsepower pump today, the energy efficiency metrics are a little more strict, harder to achieve, and very unlikely without variable speed. I'm not saying they're not going to be out there, but it's very unlikely. So that's after July 19th. If there's single speed pumps that we produce today, for example, we're producing them today, we're shipping them out, they'll be in distribution maybe for a year even. Like let's say a 2 horsepower single speed pump. As long as it's produced before that date, you can sell it as long as you have it in inventory. There's no restrictions on selling or installation. It's strictly on the manufacturer to not produce after that date. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to use them. They're not dead inventory. They're not wasted money. They're there. You can use them, install them, and then next time it's variable speed though.
So you're basically anything below 1 horse, and those would be on something like waterfalls or other smaller bodies of water. Right now you're using, for a pool, it's at least 1.5 up to 5 horsepower. So you're mostly on a pool, you're going to see that transition to variable speed, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
You trying to get your hands on a single speed pump, Tyler, for something?
Yeah, trying to make a side business slinging these.
You're about to get popped.
No,
I'm
just
going
trying
to be a part of the DOE police. I'm going to be out here with a little pump badge.
I'm just
cracking
trying
down
to
on
make them
people.
understand that people, you're going to see them for a while, even though the law goes into place, right? I mean, there's a lot of supply that has to get bought out and installed. So
We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we discuss why it's so important to educate yourselves on your customers, the cost savings calculator, and what to do if a homeowner says they don't want to upgrade or don't have the money. This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is brought to you by Leslie's. As a pool service professional, it's important to have the right partners. Leslie's values the important work you do to serve your local communities, and they want to help. With the new Leslie's Pro Partner Program, you can take advantage of the benefits only Leslie's has to offer. As a member of the program, you will get customer referrals and wholesale pricing. Additionally, you can take advantage of Leslie's extended hours during the week and on the weekends. When we were running Brothers Pool Service, we often used Leslie's when we needed supplies, especially on the weekends, and since they have over 900 locations, they were convenient to get to. They also offer free in-store services like water testing and cleaner repair. To learn more, check out episode 151 of the podcast or stop by your local Leslie's store today to sign up for the program. This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is also brought to you by Primate Pool Tools. All right, by now you've heard us talk about our friends at Primate Pool Tools, right? All their poles are made with aerospace-grade carbon fiber, which offers 10 times the strength of aluminum at half the weight. This allows you to cut through the water with ease. They have options for any level of commercial and residential maintenance with multiple models of poles to choose from, as well as an extension system that can extend the reach of any pole up to 40 feet. Primate Pool Tools continues to lead the way in carbon fiber technology by now offering stainless steel version of their flagship 2X and 3X models that are ideal for heavy vacs, as well as custom limited edition designs and brand new custom grips. All the Primate poles are handmade in the USA, come with a 1-year commercial warranty, and most importantly, top-notch customer service. Right now, you can get $20 off your order by using Pool Chasers 2021. That's Pool Chasers 2021 at checkout. And make sure to listen to episode 104 or click the link below for more information.
I think what you were saying, Kevin, about educating yourself, for the homeowner, I think that is, that's vital for any person that takes sales seriously, is really knowing what you're up against and knowing people's body language and what their wants and needs are. Because maybe you pitch it as safety. If you have an old Intermatic time clock and you're in the pool, your hands are wet, you shouldn't be flipping that thing on and off. If you just want to hit a button that goes on a quick clean after a little monsoon storm that can, run for 3 or 4 hours, there's all kinds of different things that you can do. Or even look in the archive. If they've had a single pump for the last 5 years, you could let them know what they were paying on their power bill since they've had it, or just the previous year, and say, you spent $5,000 on electricity on this single speed pump, where with this you could have been paying X amount. So this pump will pay for itself. There's all kinds of different things, and we love all the information that's on the Pentair website, because there's tons of FAQs and little infographics and different things like that make it really easy for anybody to really understand. And I like it too, because it's kind of the same style that you would see if, I don't know, you were looking to buy a Tesla or Nest or any one of these, eco-friendly, devices or pieces of equipment out there today, for people to understand, what the benefits are for you, as a homeowner that owns these things, and as, just kind of, doing your part in helping the environment.
I think the cost savings calculators are another great tool. We can come up with some thumb rules for savings, but when you can take a consumer's hours per day, their electricity costs, and you can input that in these calculators, you can really give them, a real accurate number with some confidence on how much they're going to save. I think that's pretty valuable.
you guys have that in an app, right?
We have it in a bunch of different forms, yeah.
Yeah, at Pentair, we have the Pool IQ app that can be downloaded on a mobile device at the Play Store or the Apple Store, and it provides a cost calculator. That cost savings is the big one, for customers. But Greg, you had a good point. Really understanding your customer and their area and the application for their pump, understanding what's important to them is really key to knowing what benefits to speak about. A lot of pool service guys have relationships with their homeowners. They know how they use their pool. They're oftentimes in the backyard, and they understand what their homeowners want, and really knowing what benefits to align to what's important to the customers, like California or some other areas of the country where energy efficiency is a big and important topic to a consumer, explaining to them that it's the number 2 user of energy, and it's one of the most significant things you can do to your home to upgrade it, relieve demand on the grid, and make a smart, energy efficient decision. That's important to some homeowners. It might be more important than price.
Yeah, and I think people would be really surprised at what people will invest in to kind of bring down those monthly costs. I mean, I see it all the time. People are spending $10,000, $15,000 in replacing all their windows, just in their home because of that, not letting so much heat inside and all these other different things, and it raised the value of the home. So that is, much larger cost compared to a swimming pool pump. So I think you really have to look at all the different investments people are putting into their homes. And I think it's much easier now more than ever, because I think people are they're building larger homes. They don't know what the future looks like. Their office is there. They're having guests over. They're doing all kinds of things. So they want to bring down as many costs as they possibly can. And I think that's a good one for sure. We use the Pool IQ app quite a bit. That calculator is huge because you can even put in the zip code of where that homeowner lives. But I can't remember, can you actually email a report directly from the app?
It gives an overall savings. It's not an extensive report, but you can email out from the app. And as a dealer, just doing your homework for your area beforehand and knowing what those numbers are going to be when they show up, knowing the rebates for your area is important, and practice with it a little bit so you're ready to go when that's available and you know what numbers are going to pop up for your market. Just having those numbers, because you can display it in terms of percentage of savings versus dollar savings. So if you're in an area that has very high cost of energy, has tiered billing, that dollar number is going to be significantly higher. And so that's something that's always going to be a strong argument for a homeowner. However, you might be in an area where energy is fairly cheap. Well, on the app, it allows you to display the energy savings as a percentage of savings. So you're able to talk about the overall percentage of savings that a homeowner might have. And it can, in some cases, be 60, 70, 80%, over an annual basis. And that's a powerful argument. And you'll be able to talk about the other factors that are important to the consumers as you get to know them and know what's important to them.
Right. Thank you, James.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, you and I, real quick, you and I had lots of meetings when we were running Brothers about how to communicate this, right, to people. It's all about, I like what you said, James, about practicing it and thinking ahead, because you got to anticipate what those customers are going to say, how you're going to respond to it. And the more educated you sound, the more educated you are about it, it's a lot easier of a conversation. I mean, I know, like I said, Greg, you and I had lots of conversations about how going into these initial bids and what we would say about pumps and how we would plan on kind of transitioning those to upgrading them and always giving them the option, even if they weren't looking for it. There's a lot that goes into preparing yourself for having those conversations.
Yeah, and I think you have to do even more than that. You got to look professional. Don't bring your kid's iPad case, it's pink, all these different things. Like, come there, look the part, do your hair, have maybe a clean iPad. Maybe it's, you have it all cleaned up, and actually sit with a customer and go over all these different things. Because I feel like it's just, you think that you have the tools that Pentair has given you, like Pool IQ, and you can just roll up and be like, yeah, check this out. If you want to make these sales, you got to be aggressive and do what the leaders are doing in every space. You look at these, the plumbers that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars, the HVAC that are doing crazy numbers. These people are doing crazy numbers because they have processes, they have systems, they have these teams that work together, and they know what they're doing, and they definitely know their market. They know who they're talking to. And they ask simple questions in the beginning, Is it just, you and your husband? Is it just you and your wife? Do you have kids? All these different little things, because they're, trying to figure out how they live, in this home so that they can better, discuss these options. So, do your due diligence. How do you want somebody to, sell you stuff, I guess?
Yeah, you never see solar panel people coming up looking all sloppy. When they knock on your door for solar panels, they look all professional and spiffy.
They do. They're out of business next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who hasn't had a solar company business?
That's a perfect example, Greg. You're talking about knowing to ask the right questions and knowing how your customer uses their pools. If they have a spa and their primary pump's on their spa, well, the variability of a variable speed pump, allows them to adjust the flow of their jets on their spa. That's a convenience that a lot of people would like to have. Or it might be they like to lay out by the pool. Maybe the pool is their oasis. It's the place where they like to unwind and be quiet. Well, if they could put a pump on there that they can't hear when it goes on, those are the things that once you get to know those customers, it's a natural conversation in providing those benefits.
Yeah, and there's a lot of homes here in Phoenix that are in Scottsdale where the pool equipment is actually right by the master bedroom. So a lot of times that was an easy sell, where it's like, this thing is, 10 times quieter than especially some of these pumps out here, because they're screaming. And, some people just got sold just on that alone, is how quiet it is.
They'd pay double just to stop that noise.
And their neighbor's like,
sure.
I'll chip in. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I like to hear when I used to
So fix the cleaner next. Tired of that thing coming out of the pool.
Gurgling sound.
Yeah. Zombie. So if a homeowner, insists on not upgrading or doesn't have the money to do so, what are some different options you all suggest?
I think there's a few paths to go down for this. I'll give you a second, James. So the one, right, if it's the cost, it's the total cost of ownership. That's the discussion, right? If it's really money, that's the issue, or the hold up, it's the total cost of ownership. And that's kind of where the calculator we talked about comes in, right? You spend $2,000 for a pump today, but it saves you $3,000 over the next 3 years, then you're really not paying more. You're just kind of putting the money up now to get it back later. So that's kind of the easy discussion, I think, is the cost. The other benefits are the ones that James started speaking about. What are the priorities? Kind of go into those and sell the whole package and not just the one feature. So the one feature might be energy savings. That might be your most important thing. But maybe if it's energy efficient and it's quiet, well, now it's worth a little more to me. And maybe I could foot the bill for that. And then the only other option is, for those very small bodies of water that we discussed, there would be a few single speed pumps available, but it's a very limited basis, and you don't really get any of these benefits that we're talking about today.
I think really by hearing what that to me is, it's arming the pool companies with something else to use of, like, you don't really have a choice. Before, up into this law, there's been a choice. Now it's kind of like, you don't really have a choice. They're not out there. It's not available. And I think the industry as a whole needs to come together around that, because a lot of times you'll see people undercutting other people, like, try to find another company that will do it. I think it's a good thing for the whole industry as a whole to come together and not sell, single speed pumps illegally. Make sure we're all doing the right thing. That's the way you're going to make the most money. That's the way we're all going to rise. So, taking that opportunity of, like, you don't really have a choice anymore. This is the option. And explaining that piece, it's really the only way.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I think too, just as, I was a pool man a long time, and I think oftentimes just pool men are very sensitive to price because it comes up every day. That's a hurdle that even us as pool professionals, and whether you're a dealer, it's important to almost get over ourselves. Because the fact is this technology has been out, Jeff, over a decade now? It's been a proven technology to save homeowners money across the board at some level. They've proven the test of time. They actually do lower the impact of our communities on the environment. And that is becoming more and more important to consumers over time. We have moves to electric vehicles, moves to renewable energies. I mean, think about what happened in Texas. Having less demand on the grid is a real benefit. And so understanding that these pumps really do not only save money, they have a more integral role in, supporting our communities. The costs, when you start digging into increased labor, if you got to replace a motor and do that, whether you're just doing a straight swap out, cost of ownership over time, utility rebates, manufacturer's rebates, when you start adding those all together, on average, you're looking at a 2-year return, where energy costs are fairly significant. 2-3 year return, all of the other benefits that come along with variable speed.
I mean, that could be huge if you have, a negative edge or any other features that are using pumps. If you have 5 single speed pumps running right now, I mean, it could be a lot more than that. You could earn that money back a lot quicker. It just depends on the pool, the area, and everything. But we always talk about not, spending other people's money, because you have no idea what's important to them until you ask those questions and figure out what's important to them. Then it gives you some clues. But you're right. A lot of the pool industry and pool professionals are scared to talk about price, and they shouldn't be, because, you have no idea what that person's willing to spend. If they're driving Teslas and they're clearly into that, right? I mean, it's something that you should be willing to have that conversation and not be scared to, and let them decide, what they think is a lot of money.
No, they're into good marketing. I think that's a good that's a good point to make, where you have to know the product in and out, but you have to look at where things are at in 2021 and 22 and try to market these products. If you're a small business, you're a builder, or you're a pool service company, like, how can you make the best of communicating, the benefits of this pump? We're talking, about the variable speed pump. Like, how can you do that on social media? How can you blog about it on your website? How can you, hook up with Medium and write for them? How can you understand all this and get that information out, as clear as possible, and have some fun doing it? There could be a serious side of it, where you get to brass tacks, but then, I don't know, maybe you start making some TikTok videos. Probably not, but
Jeff, you going to make some TikTok videos?
Come on, Jeff.
This is a face. This is a face for radio. Trust me.
That's what my mom told me to.
We're going to take another quick break. But when we get back, we discuss how this DOE law proves why it's vital to keep inventory of your current customers' backyards and why you should audit them, as well as several sales tactics to help you close deals. This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is brought to you by Anderson Manufacturing. Have you been running into leaking pools on your routes this summer? Be prepared to find and fix simple leaks for your customers by keeping the Leak First Responder Kit from Anderson Manufacturing on your truck. Filled with tools and repair products that can be used to address common leaks, it's the perfect kit to have on hand even if you don't offer complete leak detection as a service. Use a set of simple tools and die to inspect common leaking areas such as fittings, skimmers, cracks, and plumbing from the pool deck. Then, patch leaks with a selection of professional LeakMaster repair products. Even if you aren't able to find the source of your customer's water loss, the information you gather by inspecting the pool will help to pass off the job smoothly to a leak detection expert. For a limited time, the First Responder Kit is available to Pool Chasers listeners for a special price of $99. To purchase, visit leaktools.com and enter the promo code POOLCHASERS during checkout. If you are interested in learning more about leak detection, click the link below or listen to episodes 87 or 150 of the podcast. This episode is also brought to you by Skimmer. We all know communication is key nowadays. Your customers no longer want to see door hangers or paper tags. With Skimmer's pool software, you can send all the information directly to your customer's email. How, you ask? Well, while servicing a pool, your technicians will update the checklists, enter readings and dosages, and then take a picture before they leave. A customizable email with all the information is automatically then sent to the customer. It's that easy. It's also a great way for your current customers to refer you to their neighbors. They can easily forward the email and show their friends how professional you truly are. To sign up and get half off your first 2 months, visit getskimmer.com/poolchasers. That's getskimmer.com/poolchasers. For more information, check out episode 138 and 154 of the podcast or click the link below.
So we believe there's a lot of focus for, pool service companies. They put a lot of focus in new business, and they don't realize that there's a lot of money, being left on the table because there's so many things that need to be done in their backyards. Can you kind of, talk about that a little bit?
I mean, I could talk about that. At Pentair, we had a class for the last couple of years in our on-site training until we had the lockdown. And it was called Converting Backyard Opportunities into Cash. And really, that was what the entire training was on, was really, who are you as a poolman? Our research shows on consumers that the pool professional, when you think about all the different categories of pool professionals, is the number one influencer on the consumer as to whether they purchase pool equipment. And so just knowing that up front is a great benefit to dealers that, they're the authority. I mean, to be a pool professional, one that does service and repair, I mean, they're an electrician, they're a chemist, they're a plumber. I mean, they have a skill set that gives them some authority. So using that in the backyard, and when you go into the backyard with what I would say is an audit mentality, you need to keep your customers informed of the status of their equipment, whether it's small or big. And so when that time to upgrade is there, they're already used to you pointing out the things that need to be done, communicating to them on things proactively so their equipment is up to speed. And then when it comes down to legislation, it's like, hey, I happen to be looking at your equipment. There's new legislation coming out, and your equipment's going to be affected by it. Would you like to know some of the options that you have? And it's something as simple as that, just developing that relationship.
Yeah, that's good. I just thought of something, almost like you go see a doctor and, they're just tallying up all these things that are wrong with you, and you get written a prescription. You don't fight with them where it's like, no, I'm not doing that. It's like, all right, well, you might die because you don't take what I'm prescribing you, or you can take what I'm prescribing you and you'll be just fine. When you're in that backyard and you do have that checklist, that is something we did every time at a new pool, was go through every single little thing. And it's like, well, I'm not going in a backyard and I'm not spending 2-3, because sometimes it would be 2 or 3 hours back there. But I'll tell you what, never walked away with an invoice that was, less than probably $2,000. And some people would have thought there was nothing wrong back there, but every O-ring is shot, filter clean needs to be done. There's always like salt cell needs to be cleaned. There's a million things that, need to be done that are being overlooked. And that's what you need to do in existing backyards, is do an audit, like you were saying, James. Like, go back through those. Even if you have technicians, we had technicians too, and every time we followed up on them, there was things that were being missed. It's human nature, not going to catch every little thing. Going back through a lot of those existing pools and making as many notes as possible about what's going on.
That's why that initial bid is so important on everything. And if you have software like something like Skimmer, where you can document everything and keep track of what each piece of equipment is in that backyard, so it has 3 single speed pumps, it has an old heater, it has no salt system. You're keeping track of each one of these things as you go along for every single customer. And that way, when these laws come out, or when Pentair runs their pump specials to get $100 or $200 off a pump, like, you can contact these customers and let them know that this is available and their equipment fits, under this standard. And they can, now this is a good time to upgrade. And you made a good point earlier, Greg, when we were talking about kind of giving them a, pre-notice with everything. You want to mention that?
Yeah, just being proactive. We're saying if you know that in July 2021, the DOE is, switching over to these variable speed pumps, that there should be a newsletter going out to all of your customers, letting them know what's happening. This should have been on as soon as there was a date set. That way, it's not like this last minute thing where it's like, you're sending everybody an email on the day that this happens. But just being proactive in everything and anything that you possibly can. As soon as you listen to this, that is something I think you guys, would agree on, is crafting some good copy for a email blast that has everything to do with this. And that can have the calculator in there, some dates, all types of different things. And I wouldn't even worry about who's going to get it. People that do have a variable speed pump, whatever it is, just get it out to everybody and then start figuring things out as you go and following up with people. But I think that's huge. Either using MailChimp, and Skimmer just has a feature on there. It's pretty cool where you can actually tag pools that have single speed pumps and different things like that. But there's so many things.
You're giving them a precursor kind of, hey, this is coming, right? Get ready to spend money. And even whether or not they do it that instant, they understand now this law took place. So if something does happen to my pool pump, it's going to have to be a variable speed, right? So you're kind of helping yourself down the road in those sales conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And ensuring that, the newsletter going out there. I mean, there's a reason the Department of Energy is, making a change. And that's because it has an impact in terms of, lowering overall energy costs. Sometimes we think, oh, it's the man. The man's making us change the pump. And but to, like you said, bring visibility to your consumers ahead of time, that they see that this is legislation that's going to help lower energy costs, and they're not surprised when they see that their pool has an affected pump.
James, you bring up a good point. Talking about the man throwing regulations on us. The pool pump regulation saved the country 3.5 quads of energy, and a quad is an abbreviation for quadrillion. And anything that's quadrillion is a huge, huge number. And that's over a 30-year period, 3.5 quads of energy. I had heard that is the second highest energy conservation regulation that has gone into effect over the last 15 years. Just pool pumps. So it is a big impact item.
That's incredible. Just in North America?
Yeah. Just in U.S.
So Googling that fact and letting your homeowners know, it's the real deal, and it does make a difference. And with everything that's gone on in the past year, people want to make a difference. They want to invest in the backyard, and they're thinking about their neighbor a little more. So it's not out of bounds to let people know that they're doing good for their neighbor.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that sometimes you do have to accept that some people are very stubborn and they're not going to budge on these things. And I think you have to get good at being quick on your feet about making those decisions, where it's like, I appreciate your time. I can see that you don't, want to do what I'm telling you to do. So you got to part ways or do what you got to do, like move on. I feel like there's a lot more people out there that want to do what they're supposed to.
Yeah, we're in the driver's seat.
Another way I look
Go
at
ahead,
this.
Joe.
Yeah, another way I personally, when I view energy efficiency, to me it's all about minimizing waste. I mean, I don't want to be necessarily inconvenienced. What this pool pump does that we're talking about is there's no sacrifice. A variable speed pool pump can do everything that a single speed pool pump can do, at least as good as, if not better. So you're not sacrificing anything. You're getting everything you need to do with your pool, and you're just minimizing the waste. So regardless of where you sit on that spectrum, it's all about use what you need, but just don't waste. To me, that's what energy efficiency is best defined as.
So funny. I recently saw a Humvee and a Tesla in the same driveway. It just made me laugh so hard.
I think we're in the driver's seat now too with the demand for pool service. I mean, like to your point, Greg, if they don't want to adjust and change, like you just move on to a customer who's going to. I mean, you don't need those customers anymore that are just going to be a pain and complain about everything. And everybody wants pool service right now. Everybody's very busy. I mean, you're in control of what you take on, and you should be, very cautious and be taking on customers that fit within your business model, right?
Yeah, and I think capitalize on the good customers. If you find some customers that are really cool and you're just, jiving on a whole other level, maybe get some testimonials like videos and written and just sharing, their experience on that pump. Man, those have so many, benefits that you could put on YouTube or your website, send it to people that are kind of on the border of making a decision whether they should or should not. There's all types of different things that you can do to make yourself kind of be the expert and just, make people really, like I said, go over that, border of decision making.
I got one more question. Sorry.
Yeah.
How do you guys recommend kind of setting these pumps up for the most success? Like what programming do you think should be done? I mean, I know it's going to be different everywhere, but what's the best way to utilize these pumps to the best of their ability?
Yeah, so we have the recommendations will vary basically on the application, but generally, if you would take a variable speed pump and run it fast enough for a couple hours, maybe close to full speed, get a good turnover, get a good clean, and then run it at a minimum for maybe the rest of the day, whatever it might be, just to keep the continual circulation. Right, it's better for the components in the system, better for the filter, the heater, the valves, less wear and tear, and it keeps the water moving all day and keeps the filtration going instead of on for 6 hours and then off for 6 hours, or on for 12, off for 12, whatever it might be. So we would recommend some sort of higher speed, really get a good clean, get everything turned up, and then turn it down for the rest of the day, or a good number of hours. For a smaller pool, you probably don't have to run it 24 hours a day. Maybe 18 hours is adequate. But we see a lot of people that'll run them longer and even all day just to keep that flow going instead of higher speeds for a lower time.
So if you run them all day, I mean, even that could be less energy than a 6 hour period for a single speed, right? If you're running on a very low speed.
Yes, very much so. The reduction in energy usage for speed is exponential. So the lower you go, it's like if you were to cut the speed in half, you're not dropping half the energy usage. You're dropping, I think it's 4 or 8 times. The energy usage doesn't directly correlate with the speed. It's exponential. So you save a lot more money the lower you go. So if you were to run it maybe 40 gallons per minute, you're not using half the energy at 80 gallons per minute. You're using some number lower than half.
Very good.
Yeah, there's numerous technical benefits to running those pumps. I mean, if you guys are from those hot climates, all these secondary benefits that people don't think about. If you're in these super hot climates and maybe you're running a salt system and it's 110 degrees outside, if you've got a single speed pump with a high horsepower motor, you got to run that thing 10 hours a day just to keep up with the chlorine demand on the pool. You switch that out for a variable speed pump, and not only are the savings dramatic, but you get a much better performance out of your other equipment. And there's just a lot of little things that just knowing them and then being able to communicate them when they apply is really the key in terms of, when you're in a sales situation.
That's a good point, especially with the chlorine shortage. It's if you can run that longer and keep those pools more, effectively chlorinated, then that's a good way, a good sell too, if somebody's really into that, having that salt system and stuff.
I think one more benefit I'd like to add in there is if you were to have, you go from a single speed pump to a variable speed pump, and if you have let's say some water features or things like that, you can tune the variable speed pump to deliver a better visual on your water features. Additionally to that, if you had a variable speed and flow pump, you could set the flow to stay constant, and that water feature or that whatever you're looking for the performance of would be constant regardless of the system changes. So that's another little added benefit that we have at Pentair is we have the flow control where you can keep those things consistent through your cleaning cycle, your 2-3 weeks at a time, filter loadings, all these different things. The performance of the whole system will stay constant. Whereas with the variable speed pump, you get to set it and you can kind of fine tune it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But with the variable speed and flow, you have that little added benefit of kind of cruise control as far as your flow goes.
Right. Thank you. All this data that we're, getting, how can we convert that to sales?
Well, one, you need to simply collect it. And it could be something as simple as maybe you have a simple email program like MailChimp or something like that, or maybe you have another type of way that you communicate with your customers. So you need to collect the data, have a way to upload that data, as well as having your customer emails, collecting emails over time and putting them into either a contact management platform. And it could be as simple as going to each backyard, identifying a pump. I think you mentioned skimmer, the horsepower of the pump, creating a message to your consumers about the pending legislation and how if they have a 1 horse, 1/2 horse, or above pump, the story to converting to variable speed is significantly easy to tell because it truly does save most customers a decent amount of money over time, plus all the benefits. It's those ones that are on the cusp, that are maybe a splash pool with a 1/2 horse pump on it. That's a little bit harder sell. But the majority of these pools, especially the older ones, have those high horsepower pumps. And it's just developing a process, getting a system, whatever it might be, and then developing a plan to communicate with your customers, and a plan on how you're going to overcome or address the conversation as you get into it face to face.
Right, because you're essentially building like a funnel, right? Where everybody's going to kind of go in a different direction, but there's this sales funnel, and it just really depends on where they're going. And if you can track it with all the data and different things like that, it's actually pretty good to be able to predict what might happen in the future when new products come out. Say they do away with, chlorine tabs or whatever it may be. How can you use some of these sales funnels you've built in your archive, and how can you use that for sales in the future? So that's good stuff. Appreciate you sharing that.
Well, I'm glad we are talking about sales and marketing oriented issues because, we've got some exciting things coming out with Pentair. I am not at liberty to talk about today, but I would love to come on board maybe in a couple months or 2 to 3 months. And we're releasing some various tools and training that's going to be very helpful for our dealer bases in the next few months. And I'd love to follow up with you guys on it.
That'd be awesome. Look forward to it. I have a question. Is there any way you guys can put like a little umbrella on the IntelliFlow somehow? Can you talk to the engineers, see if that's possible? Get some sun off that thing.
I'll bring that back. Yeah, I'll bring it back.
Tyler
for I'll let them know.
Hey, if they like it, say it came from me. Yeah.
But it's good. Yeah, it makes sense.
Very good.
Cool. Well, speaking of kind of sales and training, what kind of training does Pentair offer on this DOE law?
Well, at Pentair, we just revamped our whole dealer portal and we integrated Pentair University into it. So currently we have, because of COVID, a collection of online technical training classes that dealers can log into the Pentair Partners website and create an account and get access to training on variable speed and all of our other products. In addition to that, we have some new sales training tracks. These are primarily focused on retailers, but those will be developed out to where we're providing additional sales-oriented training to dealers that sell products face-to-face with consumers. Those are 2 areas that you can find that information on training.
We're also at the trade show circuit We typically have a dedicated class just for DOE topic. We also have some archived webinars you can look at through our website. We've done quite a few of those through different entities. Aqua Magazine was one that we did that I think went real well. So those are available to view on the DOE topic also.
Awesome.
And I'd like to go back to the webpage you talked about earlier. I think Greg brought it up, pentair.com/pump regulations. Right, that's our DOE kind of knowledge base group of downloadables, brochures, information, and maybe some links to other things that would help you in addition to those other resources. I believe the webinars are posted up there as well, so there's those to watch. Great information.
Yeah, I think those downloadables are really good for your team members too. Pass them out to everybody on your team so that they understand it. They probably see your existing clients more than you do. And that stuff is really easy to digest. So all good stuff you guys are mentioning.
You'll also see, and we just started sending out a communication series to dealers, that specifically those that may not be as familiar with variable speed, or they may be in a market or just had a history of installing smaller single speed pumps. And we developed a communication cycle that's going to help those dealers transition into variable speed, whether it's providing basic information on variable speed, some of the tools that are available to sell variable speed, in addition to some tips and training videos and how to make that transition less painful for a dealer that may not be familiar with selling variable speed. And I think we might put a link in the podcast where dealers can sign up for that, and it's also on our regulations website.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely put all the links in the show notes for all the stuff we're discussing. So we really appreciate you guys coming on today. Thank you for your time and for the great conversation.
No, of course, anytime. Thanks for having
us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.